Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Inspiring Thoughts podcast. We're very, very lucky to have Emma McNally with us, who's an NLP trainer and author. And also owns her own business called Achieve Your Greatness. So, Emma, great to have you on board.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here talking to you today. Amazing.
Yeah. And it's Emma and I have already met before, so we can chat.
Yes.
I think that's what we can definitely
I think
chat.
we're professional at that, right?
Yeah, I've got a qualification in chatting.
In chatting. I talk for a living, right?
Yeah, it's great. No, I love it. So I really appreciate you coming on board today from that perspective. So just to help people from understanding, get to know you a bit better, Emma, what's your career or what have you gone through in your life?
Yeah. So I started my career in education, actually, in a primary school, and worked there for a year, voluntary, actually, working in a private school, which was loads of fun. Then I went into insurance because I guess I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Yeah. So had a whole career in insurance, did all the qualifications and exams and things, and then left there and did some consultancy work and did some lecturing and some tutoring. Always had the theme of education throughout, either me learning or training and teaching others. So that's always been a big theme for me. Then I went into local government, was there for a number of years, and worked my way up to head of change, and did some fabulous stuff. We're talking NLP today, but cultural change using NLP and some great exciting projects. And then left there about 9 years ago to set up my own business. And the rest is history. So I write children's books. I also write NLP books, and I train NLP and coach and basically support people to achieve greatness in their lives. That's my mission. That's what I do, and I love it. It's the best thing ever. So absolutely love it. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's the bit of getting to know you already. If they were to cut you in half, it would say NLP, wouldn't it?
Pretty much.
It pretty much would be from that perspective. And also the bit, I know I was lucky enough to be on one of your taster sessions today. Would you just probably talk to people about how you got into NLP? Because I found that fascinating this morning.
Yeah. So life can sometimes throw curveballs. I don't know whether you noticed that. Maybe it resonates with some people that you're jogging along and then suddenly you think, gosh, things aren't going quite to plan. And I had a particular work situation that I was finding really less than easy. A particular person that just could not click with, couldn't get on with. And I went to see my boss at the time and said, look, this is what's happening. And went, I'm sorry, not prepared to do anything about it. What you need to do is learn NLP and learn some new ways to manage and sort yourself out, was the actual phrase. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was one particular week. And in the middle of that week, I had an operation, and it was only a minor operation. However, rewind a couple of years, and my dad had been given too much anesthetic on the operating table, and he had a heart attack. So I had this fear and belief that I was going to die. So I went in for this routine operation and dissolved in a whole mess, shall we say, of tears, blood pressure sky high, to the point that they basically said they weren't prepared to operate because it would be too risky. So they sent me home, told me to sort myself out. When I then thought, right, I've got to do something. This is ridiculous. Life is not going the way I had planned. So that's when I discovered NLP. I did a taster session, a bit like the one that you went on this morning. Fell in love with it because it's so powerful that you can change things that aren't working for you, puts you back in the driving seat of your life. And I changed the belief, and I got rid of the fear of dying, which was rather helpful when you have an operation to go through. Had the operation, and everything was different. I was laughing and joking. My husband was like, who is this person that I brought to the hospital? He was like a completely different person. My recovery was so much different, and I've used those skills over and over and over in terms of health, in terms of all of that sort of thing. And then the person at work, he was exactly the same. However, I knew how to work with him easier. I was the one that had the tools and the language and the flexibility to build not only a good relationship with him, but also to, in terms of my career, to get promotion after promotion. And then, as I say, to use NLP to really help lots of other people and the organization. So that's where I discovered it. And I have to say, I'm not sure where I'd be without it, because it's like people say, so when do you use it? I'm like, all the time, every day.
Yes.
It's sort of those, you know, it's skills for life.
Yes.
It's a view for life. It enables your life to be better and easier if you know this stuff. And when I discovered it, I was like, how come nobody's told me this before? How come I didn't know that you could change the way you feel or change your belief or make like differences to behaviors so that you could have different outcomes? How come nobody ever taught me this before? So it was a massive eye-opener.
And it's one of those ones, because that's the bit of like me in the mediation world and coaching world, they're skills for life. And I think people say to me sometimes saying, oh, I haven't had a chance to mediate. And I'm thinking, you've missed the bit there. It's their life skills. Absolutely. And then the other bit's bolted on the back of it, the work stuff. But they're life skills, aren't they?
They are. They absolutely are. If you buy a new computer or you get a new car or whatever, you take a bit of time working out how it works, right?
Yeah.
But the biggest and the most important thing you're ever going to have in your whole life is your brain, okay? And it's connected to your body. Yeah, we are one little package there.
Yeah.
But how often do we take the time to understand our brains, to understand why we do what we do, how we do it, the neuroscience that sits behind it? And then what I love about NLP is it's the applied neuroscience. It's the so what. So what can we do about it? So how can we make that change? If there's a conflict, what can we do? How can we understand what's going on for other people? How can we be curious? How can we have those better relationships? That's the bit, and that's the power, right? Understanding that. So that's why I love it. It's
I would never guess that you like it. So
there
we go.
No, sorry. Have I kept that subtle? Right?
You've kept that like a secret, isn't it?
Good.
So, what for people understanding? People have probably heard about neuro linguistic programming before, so they've probably heard. But what is NLP? What does it mean?
What does it mean? So NLP, obviously neuro linguistic programming. The N part is neurons and about our brain, and it's that neuroscience bit and how we think. The L is for linguistics, which is language, and not only the words we use, but also our body language, all of that sort of thing, but also what we say to ourselves, okay, which I think is fascinating. If you start to eavesdrop on yourself, would you say that to a friend? Would you say what you say to yourself to somebody you care about? Does that make sense? So it's all about the language and the patterns and understanding how we can use these beautiful patterns to make change. And the P bit is programming. It was created in the 70s by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. And basically computer programming was the big thing. So that's why the P was there for programming. But it's about patterns of behavior, and it's about how to change those, and about giving us choice. So you put it all together, and basically it's about we create our own version of reality. You probably have come across this before. So my reality is different to your reality. I said this morning about having a shared cup of coffee. Your experience, it might be too strong, too hot, too sweet compared to mine. And if we understand how we've created that version of reality, how we've done that, then we can understand like the structure of it. We can then understand how to change it. So if our reality isn't what we want, we can then have the stepping stones to change it, so we can create a different reality. Because we can't always, unfortunately, change events. Things happen, but it's not what happens to you that's important, it's what you do about it. And NLP gives us the tools to do something about it. So
and it was like this morning, it was fascinating with the taster session that I come away. I was talking to my wife and saying about the word "do not look down." And then the brain automatically connects to look down. So we go and look down, don't we? And we just had a really good chat about actually, like I think you used the opticians about don't move. You're going to move. And it's how the brain connects. And it just really resonated today about you can reprogram, you can think about it, and actually then come out with a more positive outcome, and also change your beliefs. That kind of sits behind it. So this morning, I just thought it was a kind of a really great session to break it down a bit more about words, vocabulary, the meaning, those kind of things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because those words fire off neurological pathways in your brain.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you say don't look down, you have to think about looking down before you think about what is not looking down.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that pathway has to fire before you then think, oh, okay, what else was I meant to think? So don't be stressed, or don't worry, or not a problem. All of those, you have to think problem before you think not problem.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to think worry before not worry.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just sort of thinking, focusing on what we want rather than what we don't want.
Yeah.
And like you say, the amazing thing is this neuroplasticity, the ability of our brain to change.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes we have to do, it's called classic conditioning, over and over to create those new pathways, but absolutely it's possible, which means that change is possible, which means that we can have a different outcome should we wish to, which is pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Well, you're in control of yourself, isn't it? That's what I like with the mind and psychology, etc., is you're in control of yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's the bit of, as you just said there, of if you checked in and listened to your mind thoughts, would you say that to your friend, or would you let them say it? It's one of those ones that you go, oh yeah, actually that's quite it's quite clever, isn't it?
Myself. Oh, it really is.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah,
it's good.
And it was created by modeling people who are exceptional in their field, which is why it's so clever, because it's not just been made up. It's like, oh, they create some awesome outcomes for people. How do they do that? Oh, well, if I learn how they do that, we can have the same results by applying that learning. So that's where it all came from, was going, well, if they can do something, this whole idea, if somebody can do it, then I can learn to do it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And what would you say, like, are the main benefits of people understanding NLP? What would you say the main benefits of them?
Yeah, okay. All right. So an easier life to start with. Actual piece of who you are. To actually be comfortable in your own skin. To actually like yourself. To love yourself, to value yourself, to have higher level of confidence and self-esteem, to be able to have better relationships with those that you care about, whether that's your kids, your wife, your business partner, your team colleagues. People come for one reason. So I did it, like I've just said to you, for personal reasons, and it impacted my career. Some people come for their career and they find that it impacts on their personal life, their personal relationships. So it can help in terms of motivation. It can help overcome things like imposter syndrome, self-sabotage. It can, in terms of procrastination, it helps in terms of decision making. It helps in terms of phobias. We have this beautiful, beautiful tool in terms of phobia. And allergies and all sorts. So I've worked with people who have had massive phobias. I had one lady who jumped out of a moving car because of her phobia of spiders.
Wow.
Okay. And now you can just walk across and it's not an issue. So what happens is sometimes our brain connects things and get confused, and what NLP does is help change those things. Beliefs not good enough. I work with so many people in terms of that underlying belief of whether they're good enough or not, and by changing our beliefs and the way we speak to ourselves and others and our behaviors and change our emotions, we just have this massive gift that actually we have one precious life, right? One precious life. What do we want to do with it? And actually, can we afford not to learn how to have a better life? And how to enjoy it and have greater success and greater happiness, and greater joy. So that's just some of the things.
Just a small few there.
Small few.
But it's one of those ones about people can come along and it's about what they need to get from it. Absolutely. Rather than a course saying this is what you're going to get. Absolutely. So it's one of those ones about personal, and it can be quite wide ranging, but it's what's personal to them. It's going to make a huge difference.
Definitely.
And also then knock on to other parts of their lives, work, family, home, whatever. It's going to make a huge difference. And as you said, I think, we're only on this planet once. We might as well enjoy it and get the most from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I love the training courses. So yes, I do one-to-one coaching, absolutely. But the training courses, it's light bulb moment after light bulb moment. And the way that I train is I only train in small groups. And because they're small groups, I get to know everybody and know what they need and what they want and what they're there for. So then we can apply the learning specifically to different areas. And that then brings the whole thing to life, and it becomes a beautiful transformational journey, which is if people want to. A lot of times, people come and say, no, just want to keep it light, and then they find out that they can make these amazing changes.
Well, that's
really
also the bit about you creating the trust and the environment for them, rather than surface level. It sounds good, it sounds great, but then actually when people do feel trusted, they will share their inner feelings and etc. And I think that's a special place and a good feeling when that person has that breakthrough moment to go, I now feel trusted to say, and it becomes richer and more important to them.
Absolutely. And the groups tend to really gel together really well, and they become friends for life. We've got groups, WhatsApp groups, that have been going for years. They're all friends, and they go through that journey together. And it's about that safe space. And it's really about creating that environment so that they can learn.
And how might be a bit of a strange question, but how can NLP help us to influence or make better decisions? How does that help us?
Amazing. So many different ways. So one of the things that we can do is work out how we make decisions, and what we call it is like your decision-making strategy. So it might be that in some areas people make really good decisions, and then in other areas not so good. And what we do is we can help people to discover what makes a good decision-making strategy, and then map that across. We can also, we've got this beautiful tool that we use if somebody is in conflict. So if part of you, for example, wants to go down the gym and part of you wants to stay in bed, or part of you wants to eat healthily and another part of you wants to just eat chocolate, we've got this beautiful tool to bring those two together, to bring congruence in terms of decision. Does that make sense? So those ones that feel right. We talked this morning about having a head, heart, and stomach, brain, so that we've got neurons in all of those areas. But having congruence, that decisions are aligned to our beliefs and our values, and who we are, our identity and our purpose, rather than decisions being out of kilter. So it really helps. I know it's an old-fashioned word, but it's a word I love, which is wisdom. And it really helps us to make better decisions, wider decisions. One of the things we look at is the ecology of doing change. So before we jump in and make changes, we think about the consequences. What are you going to gain? What are you going to lose? What's the consequences of that decision? So that we can have thought it through rather than jumping in. So it's very much about, there's so many tools in terms of decision making that just helps you to make better decisions, because you're making more informed decisions.
And I think that's the bit there, is informed decisions, isn't it? That's the clear bit, that the strategies would enable colleagues and people to go, actually, I made that decision, but I had all the my eyes were open to it.
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And the impact for ourselves, but also the wider impact. So how is that going to affect your friends or family or your business or your clients or your customers, whatever it might be, and actually thinking wider than just ourselves. Rather than just going, oh, that's what I want, therefore. It's about that bigger ecology piece, and making sure that that's congruent.
And it's interesting. I've been only started reading recently Stephen Covey's 8th Habit. So I've just started to read the 8th Habit, and it's definitely about self, but also helping others to create kind of greater synergy, but it's about really working the impact you have on other people, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. We have something in NLP called neurological levels, and at the top it's about purpose. And your purpose is not just you, it's wider than you. And that's that that wider piece, the impact that we have. We're not all islands. We all impact each other.
Yeah.
And what is that like? You know, are we creating a shadow or a shine? What are we
Yes.
creating on other people? And how do we operate in this world?
Yes.
What's our life like? So yeah, for sure.
No,
Amazing.
fantastic. Now, I was lucky enough, so I've asked Emma to share a couple of models with us today. So she's not going to go through and share every bit of the model, and I would say definitely get on her taster session. So we'll plug kind of achieve your greatness later. But would you mind just sharing? We went through this morning the Mercedes model, and then we're going to go into the communication model. But would you mind just sharing the Mercedes model?
Of course, yeah.
Just
The
kind of
Mercedes
parts of
model,
it.
just at a high level. So Mercedes model, nothing to do with the car. It's just because it's the shape of the badge. And basically what this is about is changing one of those, so the three quadrants, as it were, changing one of those areas will have an impact on the other. So your language, for example, we talked a little bit about language a minute ago. What we say impacts on what we focus on, and what we focus on impacts on our physiology, and our physiology impacts on our language, and language on our physiology, physiology on our focus. And if you change any one of those, so these are all looped and they're all interconnected. If you change just one of them, the others will follow. Change two, even better, you change even quicker. So it's about, you know, the focus, what we're focusing on, and making sure that, you know, is it like we were talking about earlier in terms of our language, is it, if we're focusing on stress, then this part of our brain called the reticular activating system will find stress rather than not stress. Does that make sense? So what's not stress for you? Do you know what that is? And then you start focusing on that. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's when you can start to put yourself back in the driving seat. So it really helps in terms of, you know, let me give you an example. You know, when COVID, the lockdown came into play. So a lot of people were feeling quite discombobulated. I was feeling slightly discombobulated, and I went for a walk with my husband, and I said to him, right, we're going to focus on all the things that we're grateful for, all the things that we have. And we just literally walked around the streets taking it in turns. And I'm grateful for the sun. I'm grateful for the air I'm breathing. I'm grateful for the road I'm walking on. Grateful for the shoes I've got. I'm grateful. And we went on. And within literally minutes, it shifted our state. It shifted how we felt. Does that make sense? So that was just by doing something really simple to change our focus. Again, change our language. That can shift how we feel. And our physiology. Just standing up straight, for example, you feel very different than when you're slumped over. It's a whole different feeling. So
that's made me want to sit up now, Emma. That's made me
sit up. I love it. I love it.
So I just changed my cushion at the back, so I make sure
just adjust. But this whole idea is all connected. Change one, the others follow. So
because I also like the bit this morning, which I think you showed the video with about your husband, about his arm, wasn't it? About and the phrase he used, and you showed us different parts of that. And I thought, oh, do you know, it is about what we say to ourselves and how we do. And I remember many years ago, when I worked back in the bank, so we had our personal development plans, and I wrote on mine about being more grateful.
Nice.
And people went to me, that's not really a development or whatever. And I went, when I found it, and it was, I kept being grateful for things, and do you know what? It made me feel really good.
Absolutely.
And so that was personal development to change my mind shift. So it goes to show, but also like you walking with your husband during the height of the pandemic, how it shifted could be a really negative thing to actually what we are grateful for, isn't it?
And one of the things that I didn't mention this morning is something called psychoneuroimmunology. Rolls off the tongue. Psychoneuroimmunology. Basically what that's about is what we think impacts us physically. And then so if we're thinking less than helpful things, it impacts us on our bodies. We then check in with our body, and then that comes back up to our thoughts. Oh, yes, see, I don't feel very well. And what they've now found out is that then impacts our immune system.
Right.
So what we think impacts our physiology, and our physiology impacts our immune system. So when we think, oh, well, it's just thoughts, it's not just thoughts. It's so much more than that. And that's the demonstration I did this morning. They impacts us physically, and that impact physically then has an impact on our immune system. And I
was going to say, selfishly, I thought of something today. So I like golf. So I like golf. I'm okay at golf, reasonably good at golf, but there's one part of the golf game I tell myself I'm not very good at it. I can feel my body clench with it.
Yep.
And guess what? I do a really bad shot every time, and then I get annoyed with myself.
Yep.
And then the next hole I go on, I'm annoyed, so I do a bad shot. So it's one of those ones that I can feel, but when I do a good shot with it, I'm quite relaxed, quite loose. It's fascinating how we're telling ourselves it's going to happen. We make it, and we clench up and that. So it is true, as I'm saying to people.
No, absolutely. It's crazy, isn't it? You sort of think, well, how can just a word? But it absolutely does. It absolutely does, because the words are like surface structure. What sits underneath is a belief system.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's the belief system, and we talked this morning, didn't we, about beliefs or generalizations, that we tend to delete and distort information to keep that generalization alive. And that's great if it's a good generalization. But if it's not such a healthy belief, such as the one that I had, that I thought I was going to die, then that could be really less than helpful, right? And one to change. And that's what NLP gives us, is the tools to make that change and to have something more helpful. Absolutely. So if you believe that you're good, then you'll find, good at sport, you'll find more and more opportunities to be
good. It's even that one thinking about saying good at things. So I always used to think that I wasn't particularly good at technology, and I've tried to analyze why that is. And I think basically I didn't, as a child, didn't have loads of different computer games or different computer stuff, and then when I went to school, we didn't have computers, and it was very late on we had computers. But then I had a cousin that went and learned computers. So he worked in the computer industry. So I thought, he is a computer expert. He knows it, like coding and all this kind of stuff. So I kept telling myself I'm not very good at, and over the years, until about last year, I thought, I'm all right at technology, actually. I can set up my own YouTube channel. I can do these things. And I've suddenly realized that actually I'm quite good at technology. So I'm telling myself now, I'm quite good at it. Whereas before it was always, I'm not very good at technology. And you'd avoid it. Whereas I go, no, actually, I quite embrace it. So it's amazing what you can tell yourself and your beliefs.
And your beliefs. And beliefs are so strong. I mean, you've probably heard of things like the placebo effect. They had a big experiment. I think it was Dr. Mosley did it on the BBC. And they had a whole group of people, this massive placebo. All of them had significant pain. They gave them the tablets and said, half of you have got a placebo, half of you, it's a new drug that's going to help with pain. And they all went away. They came back, however long later. And there was a big proportion of them that said, no, we definitely had the proper drug. Definitely, because our pain's improved. And they went, don't know how to tell you this. You all had placebos. And then there was this group of people that turned around and said, I don't care what you call it. It did be good, and I'm carrying on taking it. That is the power of beliefs. Does that make sense? So even when they knew that it was just a sugar tablet or whatever, they're like, no, I'm still taking it. So this is where our beliefs become in, and we do a lot of work on beliefs in NLP, because they are fundamentally they drive the lens through which we live our life, and they drive forward our behaviors and all sorts of things, and our emotions. So we like to work with the difference that makes a difference, and 9 times out of 10 it's a belief kind of thing that needs to shift slightly, and just that tiny shift opens things up. Because we were talking yesterday, if you believe you're not very good at something, you may not even bother trying. I wrote in my recent book, there was have you heard of Darren Brown? You know Darren Brown? He did this thing with this village about this particular dog was lucky, the statue of this dog, and about luck and stuff. And there was one guy who just did not believe that he was lucky. And even when they put a £20 note in front of him on the street, he didn't even notice it. They gave him a scratch card where he could scratch off and win a telly. He put it in the bin. So it's not even just the belief, but the belief can stop you even seeing opportunities. Because that belief is so strong. So can you see how it filters out even more than just a fundamental belief? It can impact motivation. It can impact the way you see the world. So Huge.
And it's touching upon, and this morning we also looked at the communication model, which I must admit the drawing I did was superb of the head. I think I definitely agree with that in my own little world. However, not to go too, because it's a not a complex model, but it's you've got to spend time to understand the model, which this morning you did with us kindly. One bit I did find fascinating about was the information, how many millions go through us. Would you just mind sharing kind of the kind of the thought process?
The thought process, absolutely. So we get bombarded, they reckon, by about 2 million bits of information at any one moment. Okay, but what we can actually process is 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. So this whole idea of we have these filters to basically get us from this massive piece of information to what we can consciously focus on, and this is absolutely fascinating, because if you're a morning person, you might be, or Einstein, you might be rocking the 9 chunks. But if you're me before a cup of tea in the morning, you may be maybe around the 5 mark. Do you see what I mean? Of how much you can actually hold and process in your mind. And the whole idea of the communication model is understanding how we create our version of reality and how communication can get deleted and distorted, and about curiosity rather than judgment of what's going on in somebody else's world. But that they reckon it's called cognitive load theory, if people are interested in the research behind this 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. But they reckon with social media and the information that we have, that actually the amount is reducing. So it was 7 plus or minus 2 chunks. They reckon that's actually getting less. Really? And how much we can concentrate on, how much we can carry. I gave the example, if you're going shopping and you've forgotten your list, you might get some of the things, but you may not get everything. Well,
that's a bit when I'm afterwards, and like any course or workshop, if you've got someone near you, you go and try some stuff out. So I was talking to my wife and I just said, when we go and do things without a list, how successful are we at getting our stuff? And it was really good. We tried to work out what we can actually remember, and it kind of, we both went, it does make sense about that. What you can remember and process at that time, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's all about as well, if somebody's forgotten something, rather than thinking they've done it deliberately, if they've deleted something or whatever, that maybe they just had information overload at that moment. Maybe they didn't mean it. Do you see what I mean? Because we sometimes can take it personally. Oh, well, I'm not talking to them. They didn't reply to me. Well, maybe they just deleted it by mistake. And we had great videos, didn't we, on deletions and distortions and all sorts of bits and pieces this morning.
Well, it's the bit as well in that, and we were talking this morning about the mediation world, about we use the 6 and 9 or 9 and 6 to try and get different perspectives. And I definitely think for me as a person, learning my mediation skills probably 4-ish years ago, to walk in other people's shoes more. And actually it's made me just, cut them some slack. And actually go, do you know what? That person might have pulled out on me. They may not have seen me. Try and walk in their shoes a bit rather than let's attack everybody and it's their fault. Because we're all so perfect, aren't we?
Because we're all so perfect and never make mistakes, clearly.
Yes.
We call it reframing in the NLP world. We call it reframing. And actually, we don't know what's going on in somebody else's world. We may think we don't, but we actually don't. So if you're going to make something up, I have the phrase, you might as well make up something positive. So if you got cut up, maybe they were in a rush. Maybe they were off to the hospital to see somebody. Maybe, they could just as equally be rude and have done it deliberately as to have not. So what's going to be better for you? What's going to be a better outcome for you? If you think, oh, they're rushing to see a loved one, then the impact that it's going to have on our state, on how we feel and our behavior is going to be better than if we think that they're deliberately being horrible. And so that's this bit about, we talked about event plus response equals outcome, which is the communication model. And we can change our response. And there's a gap between how we respond. There's a gap of choice. And if we choose to respond in a different way by reframing it, by looking at it in a different way, then our outcome will be different. The event may be the same, but that's the bit that we can change, the response bit. Yeah.
But it was the bit this morning as well, which made me smile, is when you said about how you met your husband through the car accident. And if you hadn't have been nice and pleasant to each other, you may not have been married now. It could have been completely like Gwyneth Paltrow sliding doors, couldn't it? Situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it just goes to show the power of how we react to things. But I also think definitely cutting some people some slack, trying to walk in their shoes, etc. I've just got this strong belief that, and this is based on no fact, it's just what I believe. But I think about 90% of the people in this world are good people. I think there's about 10% naughty people. But let's give people, people try to do a good thing. We're human beings. We're not robots.
And most people are, we have a beautiful presupposition in NLP that people are not their behaviors, and that they're doing the best they can with the resources they have available. And sometimes we're all human, and sometimes we're not as resourceful as we could be.
Definitely.
and that doesn't mean that that's who we are. That just means that, that moment in time. And we were talking this morning about that curiosity of like, oh, what's going on for you? You okay? Rather than the judgment. Oh, well, they're clearly rude. Do you see what I mean? It's like, it's just that softness of like, okay, hang on a second. I'm sure we've all at some point cut somebody up on the street without thinking, or whatever it might be, or not answered an email because you've missed it, or not sent a message when you should have, forgotten a birthday, all of those things. We're human. And what I love about NLP is it's about taking accountability for ourselves and responsibility, and putting my hand up and go, made a mistake. Really sorry, made a mistake. Didn't mean it. This was not my intention. Do you know what I mean? And how beautiful, we said this morning, didn't we? I think what somebody said, gosh, this could make the world a beautiful place, right? If we could all act in that way, how fabulous would that be? Now,
you've also had the privilege of writing your book. So I know you do. We're not going to talk about your children's books today, but also your other book, which we've got here, is "Who's Flying Your Plane?"
Who's Flying Your Plane? Yeah.
So who is that aimed at, or what's the general gist of the book?
Okay, so Who's Flying Your Plane? How to Master the Controls of Your Life. It's basically for anybody who's curious in terms of performance psychology. Anybody who wants to learn about NLP. So if you're interested in personal, professional development, if you want to achieve greatness in your life, if you want to get back into, I call it the pilot seat, to master those controls, that's what the book's about. So it's about, we have one life, and it's about how to learn to make great decisions. So I cover things like relationships, language, decisions, beliefs, emotions. I cover lots and lots of tools, and then how to apply it in everyday life. So there's models in there that you can literally use, and straight away there's lots and lots. It's jam packed full of examples, packed full of tools and NLP, beautiful NLP models that you can use and apply to have a better life, basically.
So it's a good then to. And how can people get hold of your book, Emma?
So normal places, Amazon, obviously you can get it hardback, paperback and Kindle. Audible will be coming out soon once I've finished it. It's mid-recording, people, mid-recording. But if you're going to Waterstones or into Smiths or wherever you normally get your books from, you can order it from there as well.
Oh, so fantastic.
You can pretty much get it everywhere. So
it's really good then. It follows on from all your work about putting yourself in the driving seat to really kind of make that change. And also I like the bit there about practical things in the book as well, that to help people grab hold of. And that's just my own preference. I like to see something, but what's the practical tips I can use in daily life? So I think that's great. Really
I'm all about practical NLP, about. So my students will tell you, I'm always coming up with models of like, right, this is the model which you can help with stress or resilience, or this is, conflict. We're doing conflict next week. We've always got like a new, like, how can I apply this in everyday life? How can I make my life better with NLP? That's what I'm all about. For sure. Really practical, and it's written quite conversational. I've got an amazing editor, let's just put it that way. She takes out some of my waffle, you'll be pleased to know, but it's still conversational, it's still light. And it gives lots of examples, a little bit of humor in there every now and again, of like, oh, okay, as you do. So hopefully you'll get something from it, definitely. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. And we get asked regularly about from kind of our listeners, etc. What personal development are you working on for yourself this year?
Oh, for myself. Yeah. Okay. So I love to learn. I'm always learning. So I'm always learning. So some of the things I do every single day is learn a little bit of Italian. Got Italian family. So
Oh, wow,
always learning Italian. So we have a conference, an NLP conference, an international conference once a year. And we have the privilege of having all of the audios available for 6 months. So I have got hours and hours and hours to go through. But I'm also doing something called M-braining. And this is all about your head brain, your heart brain, and your gut brain, and the alignment and how to use that in coaching. So I've got that course all being well coming up at the end of next month, actually, which is very exciting. So really exciting. So always learning. Always learning.
And I think we discussed before, didn't it, about I think we've been both our lines of work is about, it's a passion and vocation that comes through rather than having to do, and actually that learning and that richness is just great fun, and cool, give me more stuff.
I love it. Absolutely. I'm always reading, always listening to something, always developing new models, always looking. I mean, NLP is a massive subject. I mean, the encyclopedia has 1,600 pages to it. So my practitioner alone, you learn 34 different models. So you can see how extensive it is. So, and there's always something to learn. There's always more research in terms of neuroscience, and keeping up to date with all of that, so that all my trainings keeps fresh, and there's new stuff that I bring in all the time. So which is the fun, right? Which I love.
It is. And you can tell when people do it, because they go, actually, I just want to learn and be better and enjoy it. It's one of those ones I just find fascinating, and I think it's always good to learn.
Yes, definitely. Well, it keeps your brain active. If nothing else. Keeps you young.
As I'm very young, I know.
Yes, me too.
And Emma, how can people get hold of you or contact you, find more about NLP, those kind of, how can people get hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, my website is achieveyourgreatness.co.uk, all one word. So if you have a look on there, you can book onto tasters. There's contact forms so that you can message me. I obviously respond to that. You've got all of the contacts there. I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. You name it, I'm there. I've got YouTube channels. So yes, any which way. So, but website normally is the best way, which is achieveyourgreatness.co.uk. And I love talking NLP, as you probably can tell, and sharing this with people. So just reach out, please do.
And I would say to people, I reached out to Emma, and we've made a really good contact, and not just a work kind of relation. It was just a very good contact, and great to meet Emma as well. So Emma, can I just say a huge thank you for today? I really appreciate it. You've been a wonderful guest, and also thank you for the taster this morning. Really enjoyed that as well. So just want to wish you all the best with your learning even more.
Thank you.
And just wish you best for the rest of the year. So thank you ever so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.